Canadian Tire sent me this Maximum brand brushless cordless drill, which I'll be reviewing in this video. 20 volt cordless lithium ion drill with brushless motor. So what's the big deal with a brushless motor? Well, in an ordinary DC motor, or in this case a universal motor, we have this commutator here, and there's these two brushes here that actually rub up against it to make contact with it, and that continuously switches the electromagnets that are actually the windings here to produce a continuous rotation. But the problem with this is the brushes on here actually have a fair amount of friction, and they also have a fair bit of electrical resistance because these brushes are made out of carbon, and they need to actually have a fair bit of resistance, otherwise you get way too many sparks on the commutator. And so between the friction and the resistance, there's quite a bit of energy lost just on the commutator. Now that's fine if your drill just runs off of a power cord, but if you're running off a battery like this, you only have so much energy available, so a more efficient motor really helps a lot. On the brushless motor, you have the coils that are switched are actually stationary and the magnet rotates, and the switching is done with transistors, which is much more efficient than the brushes. And that means for the same amount of battery power, you can get a lot more work. It's like getting extra battery power for free. On this brush drill set to the low speed, it's actually quite difficult to turn the chuck and have it spin the motor because the brushes provide so much resistance to turning. Now on this one here, I can't actually turn it at all because this one freewheels so easily it locks the motor when it's not being used. So I actually have to trick it into unlocking it by running it, and while it's running, pulling up the battery. You can see it turns really easily, except as soon as I spin it up a little bit, the motor generates a bit of electricity, and that's enough to turn it on inside and engage that brake. So once again, it's locked. Now, playing around with this drill, it is of course variable speed. I noticed that if I run it even at a very slow speed and then try to stall it by grabbing the chuck, it just cranks up the power to keep that speed going. So essentially it really regulates the speed. Whereas on this one here, if I run at a slow speed, I can just grab the chuck and stall it. Now at first I didn't really like the speed regulation because I kind of rely on the motor kind of wailing down a little bit to know when it's applying more torque when screwing. Now of course when driving screws there is this variable torque clutch that you can use to make sure you don't drive the screw too far. But I have to be honest, I have never actually used this clutch in real life. But let's try it out. Maybe that wasn't set tight enough. Let's try it again. And this is on the high speed, by the way. Pretty quick. So to play around with the speed regulation feature, I made this little crank paddle thingy here. And let's put this on the low speed and let's run this really, really slowly. So what's happening on the downward part of this turn is the drill freewheels so easily, so it actually spins faster than I've got the trigger set to. So it applies the brake, but the brake is a little bit jerky because it's really not meant for this sort of thing at all. The brake is primarily there for when I'm drilling, bring it to a stop right away. And having just spun it at full speed, you can hear it's quite loud compared to this old brushed one, which is a bit disappointing. Brushless motors can really be quite quiet, so I'm not sure why this one is so loud. It is of course a bigger drill than this one, and it also runs about 1.5 times faster, so I guess it should be a bit noisier, but not quite that much noisier. Now at first I didn't like the speed regulation feature so much, but I've realized it actually gives me a lot more control for some applications. For example, if I'm using a big hole saw or one of these big Forstner bits, I really don't have that much control. So if I want to go really slow, I'm constantly playing with the trigger to try to make that work, and if suddenly the load is not applied anymore, it tends to run really fast. Whereas with this drill, with its speed regulation, I can just push on it, bear down on it, and it will just apply whatever torque it needs to maintain that speed. The speed regulation is also very useful when drilling through metal, so it doesn't escape on you when it finally breaks through. And here's a tip when drilling large holes in metal. Always drill a pilot hole, because the chisel part of this drill right in the middle doesn't remove material all that effectively, so if you've got that already removed, you need to push a lot less hard to get the drill to really engage. Now you may have noticed the drill jumping between two separate speeds as I was drilling. And that's because this drill actually isn't really variable speed. Playing around with the trigger control, I can only get about 10 separate speeds. So this is stopped and going slowly in. That's the slowest speed. And now I'm just going to apply more. And there's the second speed. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seven. And you can really hear it jump from one level to the next. 8, 9, 10, 11. So it goes up to 11. Yeah! So this was a sponsored video, and the drill comes with a nice soft carrying pouch, which I think is much better than those hard ones. An extra battery, charger of course, power cord for the charger, a handle to clip onto here for when you got a lot of torque on the drill, and a screwdriver bit. One side is Phillips, the other side is flathead. That's pretty useless. Have you ever tried driving a flathead screw with a drill? It's just not a good idea. And a belt clip. So, pros with this drill: it's very powerful and the speed control is really useful. Cons: it's kind of heavy and it's kind of loud. So what I'd love to see is actually a drill of this size that would be brushless and have the features of this one. That would be the perfect drill for me.